Hey. Okay, it kicked me out too, so hopefully that didn't.
Nice. Oh, no. It worked out great. Thank you. I appreciate that. So first of all, tell us what you do. Tell me, because I want to make sure that I get everything down correctly.
Yeah. So I wear a few different hats. I am the lead technical guide, which is basically a coach for the Profit First Professionals organization. And that's an organization that certifies accountants, bookkeepers, and financial coaches in the Profit First methodology. So the book Profit First is back there by Mike Michalowicz. I've been a member of the organization for almost 6 years now because I also have a bookkeeping firm called Pocket Protection Bookkeeping that I co-own with my son, who, believe it or not, is now old enough to co-own a business with me.
That's mind-blowing. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then I also do financial blogging and things like that as well for Fundera
Okay.
Ledger and Web.
That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, that does blow my mind that he's old enough to co-own a company.
Right.
It's been a minute, but it's awesome. So primarily whenever you're speaking with women or men or whoever you're working with, especially during this time, what things are coming up? Because I know I could rattle off stuff, but what are you seeing?
So everyone is scared. I mean, that is unilaterally, everyone is just scared. Humans don't do well with uncertainty, and we're facing a lot of uncertainty on a bunch of different fronts. I think in a lot of ways, the shock of the physical and the health aspect of it is still there, but the economy is really becoming a big focal point right now. What's going to happen with business? A lot of people are out of work right now. A lot of businesses aren't sure about what their future is going to hold for them. So I've been working with a lot of people about how can you, especially small businesses, how can you pivot during this time to keep your business afloat? Because we're hearing a lot about the stimulus package and the PPP loan and the EIDL. And I was just in a conversation with another accountant, and the PPP loan has pretty much failed small business in America.
Oh. Well, see, I know I was talking with somebody earlier, and they were discussing how a friend of theirs has she's in cosmetology, and so she has a chair at a location, and she was worried about losing her business, like losing her livelihood. And so they were looking into the different types of loans, and that seems, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like a landmine sort of area where some are being forgiven, some are not, and they're trying to figure out those little things. Are there a couple of loans that come to mind that you're like, these are definitely being forgiven?
There's nothing definite, and this is the challenge right now.
Okay.
Because businesses were able to start applying for the loans yesterday if they were with a bank that was accepting loan applications. The banks aren't really opening up the loan application process yet because we're still lacking guidance on the loans. So the SBA issued some interim rules on the loans, but even that doesn't answer all the questions. So that just the frustration and uncertainty, because really at this point, what's happening is any financial advisor or bank, we're making educated guesses on what's going to be forgiven, what's not going to be forgiven, what the time frame is, how you need to spend the money, etc. So no one knows for sure.
Wow. And that's so frustrating. Like you just said, it adds to that uncertainty. And as we talk about financial health and how it can affect every single other dimension of your health, that's heartbreaking for a lot of women. I know.
It is. Yeah. One of the big things that I'm cautioning against is if you think you need the money, go ahead and apply for the loan, because you don't have to accept the loan. If the final guidance comes out and this is not going to be for the long-term health of your business, and it might not be, then you don't have to accept the loan. But if you think it could help, go ahead and get your application in. In the meantime, do everything that you can to make your cash reserves, any cash reserves that you have, last longer, and think of ways that you can creatively pivot your business so you still have some income coming in during this time. Because the challenge around what's going to be forgiven and what's not is the way the guidance currently stands on the PPP loan. You have to maintain payroll as it was prior to the COVID-19 crisis for an 8-week period after the loan origination, not the loan funding date. And we don't know how long it's going to take them to fund these loans. So that basically means anyone who's had to lay off staff they're going to have to recall them immediately, even if you don't have income coming in your business, and you might not have the money right away to pay them.
Okay, that makes sense. Wow. And there's a lot of moving parts, right? Like
There
there's
are, there
it's
are.
in the way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the guidance, I mean, literally, it was changing almost hourly at one point, and I think everybody's just taking a break for the weekend, and that's kind of what it
Like
seems. I haven't seen
inhale,
anything
exhale.
new wrong. Right, right. Just everybody breathe for a minute.
No, I can only imagine. So if you're okay with it, I was going to read a couple of questions that we had actually given to us. We kind of put a call out. We're like, hey, if we're going to be interviewing somebody knowledgeable, what would you like to know? And then also, if you wouldn't mind at the end giving some things that you are suggesting people do for, personal or professional finance, like just little things that maybe steps that they could take to make them feel a little bit more at ease. Um,
Right, yeah, absolutely. I don't mind. I just want to preface this with the caveat that I'm not a CPA, attorney,
yep,
or a loan officer. So
yep,
what I'm giving is a lot of my perspective on how things stand, and everyone should consult with their own professional
agreed.
about their personal situation before moving
Right.
forward.
And that's the great thing is because we're getting your advice, your opinion, but everybody as they kind of weed through their own specific situation, then they can start asking those questions to their advisors or their professionals. So at least this gives them a little bit of a foothold or a little bit of a starting ground. Because I know a lot of people, they've kind of stepped back and they're like, whoa, what's
Right.
going on? So there was a couple just general ones, maybe not specific to quarantine, but COVID-19. However, there was one, probably just general investment questions as far as she doesn't know where to start. A lot of people right now, they're thinking, okay, well, even once we're done with this, how do I protect myself if something like this ever happens?
Mhm.
So do you have any suggestions on that question?
So shameless plug for Profit First and the Profit First methodology. That cash flow system, I've gotten so many testimonials personally from clients who said, "Thank God I've been working with you because I have a little bit of a cash reserve, or I have a good cash reserve to where I'm able to make good decisions without panicking." At the Profit First Professionals organization, we are getting testimonials daily. Thank God for Profit First. So have a good cash management system in place that allows you to build a stockpile of cash. So if something happens in the future, again, like this, you're not dependent on having those sales coming in daily, and you're not dependent on a government program, which may or may not benefit you quickly enough.
Yeah, quickly enough is the operative word there because I know that
Yes.
there's a lot of hiccup right now. Another one was I have a small 401k with a past employer. I'm not sure if you're going to, this will be okay for you to answer, but is it best to pay taxes and move into a Roth IRA? How do I choose that's the first question. So is it best to pay taxes now and move it straight into a Roth IRA?
Um, that's a hard one to answer without knowing their
Okay.
whole tax situation.
Yeah, and
My
that's
right now,
understandable.
yeah, right now, my guidance to everyone is hold on to any cash that you can hold on to. And I know
Okay.
we've got deferred payments until July on taxes, but without knowing their particular tax situation, and I'm not a tax person anyway, I can't really give
Mhm.
any guidance on that.
That does make sense. It's and like you say, just like every body is different and every health situation is different, every financial situation is different. So it's very customizable, but at least that gives people an idea of what they should be looking in on. And then also, this is a great one for you, and I love this question. How do you choose the right financial advisor for you?
That is a great question. I love it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be said for personal rapport. You have to like the person. This person is going to know intimate things about your life, your financial life, and maybe even your personal life a little bit. So you have to like and you have to trust them. That's most important. You need someone who really takes the time to understand your business or your personal situation and your goals. The goals are so important. There are so many financial professionals that are focused on deliverables or on getting a tax return done or what have you. And we want to make sure that your goals, long-term and short-term, are what they are helping you focus on so they can give you that guidance to make those goals a reality.
That makes sense. Okay. So those were the few questions that we had gotten pertained. But I did just blankets. What are some things that you would suggest people start considering right now during this time, just to give them a little bit of peace, some actionable steps that maybe they can get or go ahead and start to take just to improve their financial health and maybe get a little bit more comfortable with their financial health?
Right. Probably the best bit of advice I can give is try to distance yourself just a little bit from what's happening right this minute. Because I like the Susie Welch 10-10-10 rule. You have to think about how any decisions are going to impact you 10 minutes from now, 10 months from now, and 10 years from now. So something that might make you feel really good financially 10 minutes from now, 10 months from now, could be a burden for you. So try to take a step back and say, okay, let's look at this as much as we can logically. How are these things going to impact me long term? Another thing, though, shorter term, is do an expense analysis on your personal life and your business life. Now, I'm not saying go wholesale, slash and burn, cut everything, because that's not helpful to anyone. But look at your expenses and say, okay, what are the subscriptions that I'm not using fully? You can cut those. Even before you get to that point, what expenses have I had in the past that I don't have right now, because we're all kind of locked in our houses? So that can help you feel really a lot better too about what your current situation is. When you know that you typically spend, $2,000 a month on your household expenses, but $1,000 of that is for things that you can't do right now. Now you have $1,000 extra, if you will, that you can work with, that you don't have to worry about replacing or figuring out how you're going to cover those expenses. As much as you can, if there's anything that you need to ask for forgiveness for, like rent or mortgage payments, ask sooner rather than later. Because there's this effect that happens. The first person who asks their landlord for a break on rent, they're probably going to get it. The 50th person who asks, the landlord's starting to feel the pinch at this point, and he might not be quite so willing to give you a buy on that. And that holds true across the board. Any high interest rate credit cards you have, get on the phone if you can. There are long hold times there, but get on the phone with your credit card company and say, I've been negatively impacted by the financial situation caused by COVID-19. What can you do for me to help me with my interest rate? And I've heard of credit card companies doing everything from saying, you know what, we'll suspend your payments for 2 months and no penalties, to giving permanent discounts on interest rates from like 21, 22% APR down to 6 to 7% APR long term. So those are all things that you can do right now. As much as possible, support your local small businesses. I mean, those are the people that have been really impacted the most. And I'm not saying that big business hasn't either. We can tell that the airlines are probably going to be in a lot of trouble from this because people aren't buying. But the government is more likely to do another big bailout of big business than they are of small business. So as much as possible, shop from your local grocery store if you have to go out and get groceries. If there's a farmer's market that's still open, I don't even know if farmer's markets are still open or not, but see if you can arrange pickups with small local farms. A lot of your small boutique businesses have an online presence. If they didn't before, they do now. See if you can order from them. So yeah, just support your small business as much as you possibly can. Those stimulus checks that we're all supposed to be getting, if you're going to use that money anyway, use it with your small business, but don't look at it kind of as a bonus, because what that money is a prepaid tax credit on your 2020 tax return. So, and this is another area where the guidance is a little fuzzy, because the Department of the Treasury is saying, yeah, you probably won't have to pay that back if you end up getting a bigger stimulus check than what your credit turns out to be. But I don't like the word probably there. So if you need it to survive, go ahead and spend it on groceries. If you have to pay your rent, which I think they're not evicting people right now, but if you have to, use it. Otherwise, put it in a savings account. A high yield account is best. There are two that I know of that are, they're not super high yield, but you can get 1.7% interest from a Goldman Sachs Marcus savings account or an American Express savings account.
Okay.
Store the money in there and start earning some interest on it. We don't know how long this is going to last. So I think people who maybe just go on an Amazon buying spree once they get their stimulus checks might regret that in the long run.
And I like what you're saying, because right now so much is in the air. We don't know, okay, when are we going to probably have to start paying this back? And we don't want it to be a surprise later on just because it was a nice bonus right now.
Right. And not every industry is hurting right now. There are still people who are working and getting raises and their businesses are doing okay. So, I mean, you could have a tax liability in 2020. And
Hmm.
I've seen people in the past who have taken bonuses out of their business and whatever, and then wished, oh my gosh, I wish I hadn't done that come tax time, because they need that money to pay their taxes. So
Hmm.
again, focus on survival. If you have to have the money and you have to spend the money to survive, by all means, that's what it's there for. But don't look at it as, well, now I can order that widescreen TV I've been wanting, or that new
Oh,
gaming system, or
shucks.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
I know. So what else am I going to do? I'm stuck in my house.
No, that makes tons of sense. Um, well, thank you so much, because that's just a little bit that people could start doing right now. And that's really the goal. Is there anything else that you would like to add before we shut this thing down?
Yeah, stay positive. Try not to beat yourself up for what you could have done before, because no one saw this coming. This is one of those unprecedented situations. And I've had conversations with business owners and individuals who are just really beating themselves up about, oh my
Mm.
gosh, I wish I'd started this. I wish I'd done something a year ago, or I wish I'd listened to some advice or whatever. You can't do anything about what you didn't do in the past, but what you can do is start focusing on the here and now, and what you can do going forward to put yourself in a healthier position.
I love that. No, and staying positive is the goal of this. Your mind, your body, your financial health, everything's going to be interconnected. So the more that we can stay positive and just ride this thing out, like you say, don't buy your flat screen TV, be smart with your money, and go from there. I think we'll be looking pretty good. So thank you so much for your time. I really, really do appreciate this.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
No problem.